In this tutorial, we're going to cover how to debug your code. We're going to set a breakpoint and then step into the code and look at how the program is executing line by line. I'll give you an idea of what's really going on, and if you have an error in your code, you can use this technique to figure out exactly what's happening and where the error is occurring. Okay, so to begin with, I want to look at our lizard example, this lizard man example, where I have a collection of enemies and then I'm just displaying them all to the screen. And what I'm going to do is come over here into this column to the left of the lines of code, and I'm going to insert or click and insert this red dot. And what it's going to do is it's going to highlight this line and it's going to set a breakpoint here for this line of code. I can click it again and take it off. But anywhere you see this red dot and this line of code highlighted in red, whenever the program gets to this point, it's going to pause and drop back into the development environment so that we can see what's going on. Okay, so I'm not changing any code, I'm just setting this breakpoint. And now let's do run. And you've seen me use run without debugging. This time I'm going to do start debugging. That way this breakpoint will actually get executed. So when I start this, you'll see that my program starts to run and it's waiting here. Nothing has gone to the screen because now the IDE has become active again, and you can see this yellow arrow is indicating that the program has paused right here and is waiting for me to interact with and view what's going on. So I've paused at this command where it's creating a new enemy. And in doing so, it's going to drop into the constructor of the enemy and run that code. So the call stack down here in the lower right shows what's active, and you can see that the green arrow says that my main class.main is what's active, so the main function is what's currently running. You can also see in the locals window, and if you don't have this, perhaps you're looking at watch, so click on the locals tab to see that, and you'll see that we have args, which is this parameter coming in to main. I have I, because I declared this integer I here, and notice that it is of type int, and it has a value of 0. I also have my enemies here, which is a count of 0, and it is of type system generic collection list, and I have R, which is of type system random. So you'll notice that the my enemies, if I click this, it says that there's nothing in there yet, nothing to see. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I could do at this point. I could just tell this thing to run and make progress and actually do the code. But what I want to show you is in the run menu, you have this step over, step into, and step out. And these are going to be really important to use. We're going to use step into, and what that means is it's going to dive into whatever method is being invoked here. Okay, so on a Mac, it's the shift command I is going to dive into, so you'll see me doing that now. I'm going to type in shift command I. On Windows it's slightly different, but now we're looking at a different piece of code, and you'll notice that we have dropped into the enemy.cs file, and we're in the constructor of the enemy, and now the execution is waiting right here before it proceeds, because this is the next command that's about to execute. You'll also see that our call stack has grown, and now we're no longer active in main, but we're actually running this constructor here. Okay, the locals has changed as well. I now have attack HP N, pause X, and pause Y, which are the parameters coming in here. So my attack is 12, my HP is 50, my N is lizardman 0 because that's what was passed in from main, and the random position X and position Y are 6 and 1 here. In addition to the parameters, attack HP N, pause X, and pause Y, I have a this, which refers to the class itself. Now remember we said that all of these properties that we had defined up here existed within the scope of the entire class, and if that's the case, then inside this constructor I should be able to have access to them as well. So we're going to use the this to refer to myself in this class. If I expand this out, you'll see that we have attack strength and health and hit points and name and position X and position Y and strength. All of these are within the class, and you'll see that they don't have any values yet. They're either defaulting to 0 or they're defaulting to null because we haven't put anything into them. So if I hit Shift Command I and go to the next command, it's going to highlight that, and you'll notice that after it has executed hit points equals HP, then now in this, hit point is equal to 50 because I've executed this command. And if I repeatedly do Shift-Command-I, I can step through each of these commands, and you'll see that the values in attack strength, health, hit points, name, and position X and position Y are now being filled in with the values that we took in as parameters here. So I'm at the end of my constructor, so if I hit Shift-Command-I one more time, it ends the constructor, the call stack comes back into main because I'm now done with this command, and I am about to increment I, right, because I'm at the top of this loop again, so right now I is 1, but if I do Shift-Command-I one more time, then I increments to 1, and 1 is less than 30, so I'm about to execute this my enemies add a new enemy again. Now you'll notice also, before I even go into this, that since I've already added a new enemy to my enemies collection, then my enemies has a count of 1. So if I open this up, you'll see that the my enemies at position 0 is a Lizardman 0, which has a health of 50 and does damage and is at position 3-1. So the toString function that we overrode in the enemy class allows the debugger to display these properties to me. Of course, I could open this up and actually look at the actual properties themselves of this object in the my enemies collection. So let's dive deep into one more. I'm going to do Shift-Command-I, and it's going to dive back into the constructor, and we'll just iterate through that, adding in a new Lizardman 1. And now you'll notice that when I come back up into main, my enemies contains 2 elements now, Lizardman 0 and Lizardman 1, each doing, in this case, the damage is still 12 because the randomness had a match there, but the position for the second enemy is -7 and 1, and the position on this enemy is 6 and 1. Okay, so we can repeatedly go through. I'm just hitting Shift-Command-I over and over and over again, and we're expanding the my enemies collection, and you'll see now that we've got various elements in our my enemies collection, each doing different amounts of damage and each at different positions. Right? So you can see how each of these is being randomly added into our world. Okay, so hopefully you can see how using this breakpoint and going step by step into the code and tracing it line by line, you could use your locals view and also the call stack to see where is the computer and what code is it running and when does a particular value change. So I would be able to see exactly when does this crash, or if something's happening and it's not going well, then I can trace down exactly when that's occurring. So using breakpoints and using your step over into and step out commands is a really easy way of figuring out step by step and slowing down your program to see how it's actually running.